Hello and welcome to another edition of ProtoBalls Talk. I'm Protomet.
This is Barry.
Barry is tired.
I'm tired.
This movie exhausted him.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
But I am going to preface this podcast with this. No matter what we say in this podcast, it will not do this movie justice. Like, we can say all we want, but this is a movie you really need to see to properly experience.
And what movie is it that we're watching?
House. Not to be confused with House, which we've already covered. And this one is the 1977 Japanese horror film that has nothing to do with the previous two House movies that we've watched. In fact, as of the release of this podcast, I'm retroactively renaming the first House podcast to include the name, or the year, to avoid confusion with this movie.
Yeah, that works.
This movie is, to put it simply, an experience.
It's insane is what it is. So, released by Toho, which is a very good sign. It's always a good sign when Toho releases something. Except for that one thing we watched way back when. I think that was Toho.
Hokkaido?
Yeah.
No, that was Toei.
Is that Toei? Okay. Well, good. At least it wasn't a stain on Toho's reputation.
No, that would be the Attack on Titan live-action movies.
Alright, see, we had to wait a while for it. It's an interesting movie in which, like, House 77 is an interesting movie in which it is, like, unintentionally bad film.
I mean, critics didn't care for the movie.
Critics hated it.
But the box office told a different story.
Yeah. And it's an 88-minute movie. So, I mean, yeah, if you haven't seen it, you stop listening to us and go watch it first.
Yeah, for a change, we're actually doing the spoiler break right away. Because this is a movie you need to watch.
This entire movie is one walking spoiler, essentially. The first 15 minutes, you don't know what the fuck is going on. Because they throw everything at you all at once. They throw at least 8 characters at you all at once. And you don't know what the fuck is going on.
You're just along for the ride.
You're along for the ride.
Which is kind of funny when you consider that, at the very least, I found the film's story, just straight the story, incredibly simple to follow. It was the story combined with all the visuals and effects that this movie had.
Yeah, had the story followed, like, I'm trying to think of a similar movie to, like, the plot of House. It's like, without spoiling it, I'm trying to think of a similar movie.
Right.
It's like Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, in a sense. In a very similar vein of that kind. If you know, you know.
Yeah, I would agree with that, yeah. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, like, once you, like, I was about a third of the way through the movie, and we got to, like, the first, like, the aftermath of the first death, and at that point I was like, oh, I see what's going on now. I gotcha. Alright. I see what's happening.
Admittedly, this movie was made to be incomprehensible. That was the screenwriter's idea. That was what Toho told him to do when writing this script. Make a movie that's incomprehensible, because they were kind of sick of having all these lackluster, comprehensible movies that they had been putting out.
Yeah.
And it took the screenwriter 2 years of pitching this movie before Toho finally said, okay, you direct it then.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah. So the director is Nobuhiko Obayashi, but the story was developed by his own daughter.
His preteen daughter, who he borrowed a bunch of ideas for, and then they had Chiho Katsura do the screenplay for it. And so it is a preteen fever dream, to put it lightly. That's despite the fact that it actually has quite a bit of nudity in it.
There's a lot of nudity in the second half, but it's also like not
so utterly insane.
Well, and it's not played for like
sex appeal. It's like this is just happening in addition to everything that's happening.
There's a scene where somebody's clothes dissolves, and then they dissolve themselves. So it's not played sexually. It's like, oh no, they're fucking dying. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of actual graphic imagery.
Like the entire thing was meant. All the effects in this movie are done intentionally bad, intentionally fake looking. You're like it's not like, oh, this was shoddily made. This was like, no, these are all intentionally poorly designed.
These are intentional design. If this was a video game, these would be intentional design choices.
Like a lot of puppet combos, retro slasher games that are mostly done in like the PS1 style, despite coming out in today's setting.
Definitely like the PS1 inspired slasher games that have been like Murder House. I think that's the name of it. It's like a PS1 inspired slasher on Steam or something like that. But a friend of mine was also watching the movie with us, and he was like it's like a childhood nightmare.
Yeah, that is a very good way of describing this movie.
Yeah. So let's just run through the characters quick. All right,
we've got Gorgeous, Fantasy, Mac, Kung Fu, Prof, Sweet, Melody, and Auntie. Those are really the only ones you need to worry about. There are a few others like Mr. Togo, Gorgeous's dad, and Gorgeous's new mom.
And the watermelon farmer.
Yeah. But it's just those first 8 that you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. There's also like another character who is there's also another character called Ryoko, but he's only ever seen in flashbacks.
Yeah.
But yes, so the movie does establish that these are actually like nicknames for the characters, like, but Gorgeous is her real name.
I mean, if we're assuming that based on the fact that her dad calls her by that name.
Oshare. Kung Fu. Literally, they're the most base of nicknames you can think of.
Like their nicknames perfectly describe them.
Kung Fu. She's a kung fu fighter.
Prof. She's smart. Sweet. She's nice.
Melody. She plays music. Mac. She eats Big Macs all day and is constantly hungry.
I mean, I don't think she ever eats Big Macs, but she is constantly eating.
She's like... what's his name? Barney Rubble? Is that his name from The Simpsons?
Barney Gumble.
Yeah, she's the Barney Gumble of the group.
They have one trait and they stick to it.
Yeah. Whereas with Barney, it's alcohol. It's
always drunk.
Yeah, with Mac, it's food. I'm hungry. I'm scared. That makes me hungry. Man, cleaning this house makes me hungry.
You've literally done nothing to clean this house. And yet I'm still hungry!
Walking through the forest makes me hungry. A nice hot bath makes me hungry. Shit like that. It's just like, oh my god.
To be fair, like, all the characters are this kind of basic.
Yeah, and well, like, fantasy is like... That's the one that loses it a little bit.
I assume they call her fantasy because of how quickly they are to assume that she just imagined things that happened. So I assume that she is the imaginative one of the group.
Yeah, fantasy also has a crush on Togo, who is one of their teachers, by the way. So and he also kind of reciprocates, which is also kind of
The movie doesn't dwell on it.
The movie hand waves it off.
It's like, yeah, no, it's a thing.
It's a thing. Don't worry about it. Oh, it's also a comedy. That's the other thing. Like, there's like Three Stooges slapstick in the early portion of the movie. It's weird.
Oh, incredibly weird, but
there's a scene where Mr. Togo slips down some steps.
And it's mostly done in stop motion.
Yeah, it's mostly done in stop motion. He falls down the steps and he lands ass first into like a bucket, and he's like spinning around into the street, and it almost gets hit by a car and everything. But it's all in stop motion, so it's just like what is happening?
Like the whole thing is incredibly surreal, and Wikipedia refers to it as a psychedelic horror comedy, which is fair. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember at one point, Jekyll, VJ's girlfriend, had mentioned that they had previously watched the movie and she had thought she had started to nod off while watching the movie the first time, and then rewatching this movie confirms that no, she didn't. That actually happened.
Yep. Yeah.
In this movie. That should give you a good idea of just how out there this movie is.
Yeah, and it's really hard to rate this movie, too. I
give it a 10 out of 10. It's a must-watch.
Just for how insane it is?
Yeah.
If I'm giving, like, a proper review, an honest review, it is, in my opinion, it's like a 5 out of 10. But it's one of those movies where you need to watch at least once.
Yeah.
At least once, just to see it. And just to say, hey, I watched 1977 House. It's not necessarily a good movie, and a lot of it is on purpose, which, fair enough.
That's why I have a hard time really calling this a movie. I mean, the movie itself refers to itself as a movie.
A movie, House.
But no, I would more refer to this as an experience. Like, you're not just simply passively watching this. You are experiencing this.
Yeah.
You put this movie on and it happens at you.
So, yeah. Okay. So I was wrong about Ryoko Emma. Ryoko Emma is one of the characters that's first introduced earlier.
Yeah, that's the new mother.
The new mother. So Gorgeous's dad is a widow, and he meets a new woman, and Gorgeous is not happy about this for some reason.
So instead of going with her dad and his new wife on the vacation they had originally planned, she decides to write to her aunt asking if she and her friends can go visit them in the countryside. And Auntie agrees.
Speaking of the dad, by the way. So he's a film composer. This crawled my ass, alright? There's one line in there that chapped my fucking ass here. And it's Gorgeous saying to his dad, "You're better than Morricone." And I was like, you motherfucker. How fucking dare you?
We don't know. We've never seen any of the movies he's composed.
Yeah.
Maybe he is.
Alright, well, you got me there. You got me there, alright. right. Fair enough. We'd have to find some of these movies. Apparently he was in Italy, too. So that doubles it.
Yeah.
No, Morricone is one of the best composers of all time. It's him, John Williams, or James Horner for top 3, in my opinion. So nevertheless, Gorgeous gets the idea of visiting her aunt,
whom she had only ever met once before.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing to do. Be like, hey, I've only ever met you once. Can I come, like, visit on vacation?
And it was like, at the time of her mother's funeral. So, she's clearly just trying to find some way of escaping this. Okay, my dad has forgotten his love of his original wife and is remarried, and I'm upset over that. So I'm going to try and separate myself from the situation until I can sort out my emotions.
Sure, something like that.
Situation.
Something like that, I guess. And she gets the bright idea to invite all her friends, because...
Since they were originally planning to, like, do some big trip over, like, the summer vacation, so this kind of proves to be an opportunity for them.
Yeah, apparently they were going to go to, like some sort of, I guess, hotel or whatever, but, what's his name?
Togo?
Yeah, Togo's sister apparently had to put the place up for renovation.
No, it's because she was having a baby.
Oh,
so
okay.
she had to close the resort until that was all sorted.
Which begs the question: is this like a wealthy school for these teenagers, or is this just regular ass middle school? Or
Not that the movie will ever answer that question.
The movie never fucking answers it.
I mean, I'm operating under the assumption that maybe the guy's sister just runs a small hotel or resort.
Maybe. I don't fucking know.
So maybe it doesn't have so many employees that it can be open while she's...
Yeah, probably. It's probably one of those, like, family-run bathhouse resorts or whatever.
Right.
That,
And again, we're just making assumptions because this movie doesn't try to explain it.
Well, yeah.
Because it's not super important.
Well, yeah, but it's also, like, Gorgeous's dad is a very successful businessman. You would think he would put her in a wealthier school, but it's never established. So it really doesn't matter. It's just a minor, like... it's a minor thing. Minor note.
Basically, if you have any questions about this movie and its plot...
Just don't.
Just drop the question. Just don't worry about it. This movie is not going to try to answer anything.
It's like a roller coaster. It doesn't need a raison d'etre.
Yeah.
So they all decide to go on this whole trip, and there's a cat involved too.
Blanche.
Blanche, yeah, which came out of nowhere, and
Gorgeous just kind of adopted it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It just showed up, and it's sticking around.
We also get a sort of, like, I guess, flashback to...
Yeah, because on the way up to her auntie's place, she basically tells the story of how auntie did have a fiance prior to the war, because this is 1977, just like 30 odd years after the end of World War II.
Yeah.
So
33 years after World War II had ended.
So, like, part of this movie is, like, the disconnect between the then modern young culture being disconnected from the hardships that came from the war and the aftermath.
Which is interesting, because Akira essentially tells the same story as well, but actually, like, addresses that. Akira is largely... Akira Akira and Grave with the Fireflies, to an extent, is largely a commentary on the rising crime rate after Japan's economic miracle following World War II, where the youth was much more rebellious despite their parents giving them sort of a lot of the gifts of the economy that they had to toil through as children during World War II. And the flashback essentially says, like, yeah, Auntie had a fiance, but then
he died in the war, and she kept waiting for him to return.
Yeah, she never got over it. To the point where...
even when her sister got married to Gorgeous's father...
Yep.
She stayed in the old family home.
Yeah, just with everyone else dying around her. So... It's sort of, well, and it's shot in an interesting, well, minorly interestingly, I guess, is what
it's presented as, like, an old-timey silent film.
Old-time silent film.
From the war period.
That all of the characters are watching.
Yeah, because the characters actively comment on stuff happening on screen.
It's a, would you call that like a third wall break or like a fourth? Or like, it's not a fourth wall break because it doesn't address the audience.
It's like a sixth wall break.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird.
Which is a good way of describing this movie. It's very weird.
I guess. So after that, they eventually start walking through a forest, and they come upon some weirdo with watermelons.
He's just running a watermelon stand.
In the middle of the middle of nowhere. But they do eventually get to the house
because he tells them where to go.
Yeah,
because he's a local, so he knows where.
He's a local. And he ominously points out that the mistress of the house will be very pleased to see new blood. Or something to that effect. New visitors. So, so they go to the house, and there's Auntie in a wheelchair.
Wearing her shades.
Wearing shades, yep. It's just... And then the shit starts happening, like, almost immediately, alright? Like, they get there, and they start cleaning the house and stuff, because it's all dusty, and they're getting a tour of the house and whatever. And they put the watermelon in a well to keep it cold.
Because that's what you do back in the old days. You put a watermelon in the well to keep it cool, because it's cooler down there than up there in the summer.
Yeah. And, like, they... And apparently it used to be an old clinic as well, because...
They found, like, a medical skeleton.
Which is from Auntie's... which is from Gorgeous's grandfather, who was a doctor during the war, essentially. And then there's also, like, a piano, because apparently Auntie taught piano.
I should say, yeah.
Yeah, so...
At one point, they just hear this loud clock chiming.
Mm-hmm. And then it starts getting darker out. And then Mac is like, I'm gonna go get the watermelon. And then doesn't come back for a while.
And I think that's where we're gonna put the actual spoiler break.
The actual break. But, I mean, yeah.
Because from here on, it just gets even more intense than it already has been.
From here on out, after the first thing that happens, the first major plot thing that happens, you sort of get what's happening, or you get an idea of what's going on. But I suppose we'll talk about other elements of the film, like what's your favorite character? It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Essentially, all the actresses, except for Auntie, are all, like, new. Like,
well, the actress who played Gorgeous had previously been in some other stuff too.
right.
So she and Auntie are the two that actually have experience in acting. Everybody else in this movie is basically an amateur when it comes to acting.
Yeah, which it really shows. It really shows. And I think that was on purpose, though.
Like, a lot of this movie is intentional.
It's an intentionally bad movie.
Like, while watching it, I came to the realization that a lot of this isn't supposed to make sense, and at that point, everything made sense. It's kind of...
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. There's, like... It's weird, because there's just elements of, like, a bunch of other movies. Like, there's elements of The Exorcist, there's elements of, like...
The Evil Dead.
The Evil Dead, there's elements of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's elements of Poltergeist, which didn't come out yet, by the way. So it's just like... Alright, this is like, throw some darts at a board and see what hits.
And, like, everything stuck.
And everything stuck.
So they used everything, and that's
why
we got this movie.
It was a cursed board. And that's what they used. Your favorite scene in the movie? Like...
Do I have to pick just one?
Which one stood out the most to you, I guess you would say? Is it the piano scene, or...
I mean, that one's up there.
That one's up there. Yeah, there's the piano scene. There's... I wasn't a big fan of the futon scene. Or not the futon, the blanket scene.
The mattress scene.
The mattress scene.
I think the well scene was a good starter for everyone.
The well scene starts things off. There's the clock scene also. That one's actually really good. Like, if that was in, like, an actual proper production, that would actually be very creepy.
Yeah. Then you have the whole climax, just...
The entire climax of the film.
Just the whole thing.
And then there's and then there's the end of the movie, which is just bizarre and doesn't explain things, but that's the point. Actually, I take that back. Things are explained relatively well.
It's an ending that makes sense, given what came before.
Yeah, it's just a question of your interpretation of things, which is we'll get to when we get to it.
But yeah, like it's hard to narrow down one favorite scene, given how much happens in the rest of the movie.
I will also say, during all the batshit stuff that's happening, there's Togo.
Togo just on his way to these...
Yeah.
Like, he never actually makes it to the mansion over the course of the movie. He gets stuck in traffic.
I'm trying to think now. I remember... I'm pretty sure... No, you know what it is? It's Last House on the Left. That particular kind of sequence, because the entire build-up to Last House on the Left is all the batshit violence that's happening, and then the cops are just doofuses that are just gingerly on their way to the crime scene. Throughout the movie, it cuts to them, like, doing stupid shit, if I remember right, until they finally arrive and everything comes to a head. But Togo doesn't really get that,
far.
He doesn't get that far. He almost gets there.
Almost. So close.
You know what? That whole scene, too, is super fucking weird. And just comes out of nowhere. Banana. Oh my god. This whole movie is a fever dream.
That is also an apt way of referring to this movie. An experience, a fever dream.
Yeah, a fever dream of childish nightmares. Now imagine if they actually tried to do a good plot.
It probably would have all fallen apart.
It probably wouldn't have worked well. The interesting thing I will say is that the movie, shockingly, out of everything else, reminds me the most of Sweet Home, which is also a haunted house movie. And in case you don't realize it, House is a haunted house.
In fact, the director actually went with that name for the movie because it was a Western word and it was taboo.
Yeah, I guess.
That was his line of reasoning. It's like, it's a taboo word. It's foreign. They're gonna love it.
They're gonna love it. This is such good shit, pal. They're gonna love it.
Now, a lot of people call this movie Hausu to go off of the Japanese pronunciation, but I prefer to refer to it by the way that the trailer pronounces it. House.
House. I prefer to call it a movie, House. A movie, house. Yes, as the intro...
The intro literally is a movie. House.
It's pretty silly. Recommendations, I guess. We'll swing right into it.
Do you have one?
I don't have one on me.
Okay.
Right. None that comes to mind right now.
Okay, I'll give you some time and go with my recommendation. So lately I've been watching Beetlejuice, the cartoon, based on the movie. So I'm going to recommend the cartoon. I mean, if you want to watch a movie, go for it. It's a great movie. But the cartoon, fantastic. It's a comedy. It's weird. It has a lot of puns and wordplay. But given that the main character is able to transform into that wordplay,
it arguably removes one of the biggest yikes factors from the regular movie. Spoiler alert, Beetlejuice is a villain in the movie. Alright? He's 100% a creep-ass villain. In the show, I'm not sure. He's
an asshole. He's an unrepentant asshole.
Okay.
He loves pulling pranks and messing with people.
But is he at least...
Everybody hates him in Neither World.
Okay, alright. Fair enough.
He only has a few people that can tolerate being around him.
Yeah, he's just not a creep.
He's just not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Speaking of, what's his name? The actor for,
Charles Dietz?
Michael Keaton.
Oh, Michael Keaton.
Speaking of Michael Keaton, I don't know if you saw the Oscars at all this year or not.
Nope.
But, Arnold Schwarzenegger and, what's his name from Always Sunny?
Charlie Day?
Not Charlie Day.
Danny DeVito?
Danny DeVito, yeah. Okay.
Oh, the twins reunion.
Yeah. Yeah, so so Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito did a segment together, and they referenced that they were both Batman villains, right? And then Danny DeVito, he spotted Michael Keaton in the crowd, and he goes, "That son of a bitch, there he is! There he is!" And Michael Keaton didn't break character. He was just like, "Yeah, that's right, I'm Batman. What are you gonna fucking do?" He had a smirk and he did a motion where he was like, "Come get me." It was great. He was like, yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, that was very rude of you. Very rude. So yeah, a little bit of levity at the Oscars this year. Nobody got slapped this time. Jesus Christ. He's never been allowed back either after that. Fresh Prince.
Will Smith.
Will Smith, yeah, he slapped, who did he slap again? I'm trying to remember.
Chris Rock?
Yes, that's who it was. He slapped Chris Rock over a joke about his wife. Because, Will Smith is kind of a sensitive dude. Nevertheless, Yeah. So
Yeah, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, the film.
And for the record, I am not watching the cartoon. I have been watching the cartoon, but I haven't been doing it because of the recent sequel movie that came out. I was just going to watch Beetlejuice anyway.
Fair enough.
Like, it just happened to be that the new movie was coming out. I still haven't seen the new movie, Beetlejuice, but I have heard good things.
I heard it's alright.
Yeah. I'll probably check it out once it hits like Blu-ray or something, but for now I'm just watching the cartoon, and admittedly some of the lines are a bit repetitive and definitely come from the movie, but others overall I'd say it's definitely worth checking out for definitely a children's horror series. I would definitely say that that's probably the main reason why I like children's horror shows. Although if you put a gun to my head, I would definitely say that the '90s Addams Family cartoon is better. But that's just pure opinion.
Was it? Forgive me if I'm wrong. Both of those were on the Warner Brothers Saturday lineup, right?
I couldn't tell you. I'm pretty sure Addams Family was on like ABC.
No, okay, yeah. Addams Family was an ABC show. That's right. I forget if Beetlejuice was a Warner Brothers show, though.
I do know that because its fourth and final season had the requisite 65 episodes. It was a syndicated show, but I don't know where the first 3 seasons initially aired.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I just know for sure that I watched it.
Yeah, 80s or 90s cartoons generally fell into one of three categories. It was usually either Warner Brothers Saturday. No, it was usually either a Warner Brothers lineup, it was a Fox lineup, or it was a Turner lineup. Generally speaking,
Or a Disney lineup.
or a Disney lineup, one of 4. But most, yeah, that was back when Disney was still relatively doing cartoons only. I think, I think they still did the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse at that point.
I just watched the cartoon side of it.
Yeah, they really didn't start doing live shows until the 2000s, and then Cartoon Network decided, hey, I like that idea.
We don't like talking about that period.
2000. I like talking about that period because that's the period I grew up in. 08, 09, 2000. Listen, 2000.
You poor unfortunate soul.
I grew up during the dark days of Cartoon Network, and I consider it the dark days because Cartoon Network, they actually just closed their website. I remember sharing that article a while back that Cartoon Network officially is shuttering their website, which is end of an era. Really.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's one of the oldest. I think that started in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a sad state of affairs for it. But, yeah, that 08... So Cartoon Network, in their infinite wisdom, a channel named Cartoon Network decided to start introducing live action shows.
Admittedly, Cartoon Network had previously aired live action shows as part of their Adult Swim block.
Yes.
Which gets a pass because it's not called Cartoon Network, it's called Adult Swim.
They also had a show back in the day that was a mix of live action. I forget what it's called exactly, but it was a mix of live action and cartoon. Sort
Out of Jimmy's Head?
Yes, I think that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's like largely lost media because nobody cared for the movie that it was based off of, and people cared less about the show itself.
I remember watching it.
That is fair. I mean,
yeah.
I do recall actually watching the first live-action Ben 10 movie.
Yeah. Isn't that lost media, too?
I don't think so.
There's a couple of shows that are lost media because nobody gave a fuck about it. But, by 2008, they started, introducing, live-action shows. And then 09 happened, and it was nothing but. The principal three were the principal two were destroy, build, destroy, and dude, what would happen? And it was just like, that's great. You know, where's that Ed and Eddie?
Where's my SpongeBob?
Yeah.
Oh, it's on a different channel. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, where's Chowder? Where's that Ed and Eddie? Where's Foster's home? Oh, they're all gone? Oh, no.
And like at around the same time, Nickelodeon was just doing SpongeBob like all the time. Like I don't recall hearing about very many shows that Nickelodeon was doing that weren't just SpongeBob.
It was just SpongeBob and Fairly Godparents.
Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah, Fairly Odd Parents at the time. That was it. I don't remember any other shows from like 06 to 010.
At least not ones that weren't also done by Butch Hartman.
Sorry. Avatar. Avatar was on during that time.
Yeah, but that was like way better. So it's like
Yes.
It's like saying, oh yeah, no, I remember all my classic Disney Saturday morning cartoons. DuckTales, Goof Troop, Gargoyles. Wait. That one seems like the odd one out.
Hey, don't disrespect Gargoyles.
Oh, absolutely not. I recently rewatched the first season. Still holds up incredibly well.
Listen, I would much rather have a conversation about old cartoons. I remember we spent fucking 40 minutes one time talking about it. If we could dedicate an entire episode to it, I would be game.
But we're going to talk about Beetlejuice.
Yeah, we were here to talk about Beetlejuice.
Yeah, no, the show still holds up. It's
Show-
definitely a kid's show with a slightly adult edge. Like, it can sometimes get away with some pretty... oh, okay.
Yeah.
type humor. But it's still distinctly for kids. Like, you could watch it with your kids, and you're like, yeah, no, this is...
It's fine, yeah.
Like, it definitely helped warp my morbid sense of humor. Absolutely. Taught me a few turns of phrases that I hadn't heard before, like get off your high horse.
No thanks. I'll stay here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Beetlejuice TV show is fine.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not the highlight of television, but...
I'm not saying it was, but it's like...
What was at the time? Like, yeah, like, what other shows were on at the time that Beetlejuice was on? Now that I'm thinking about it.
I mean, we had the early Disney afternoon cartoons, like the aforementioned DuckTales, Goof Troop.
Wasn't G.I. Joe on at the time?
That was 80s, so I would say that...
Okay, yeah.
Maybe one of the reboot shows that nobody ever likes to talk about, because...
No, Transformers was 80s. Yep.
Unless we're talking about Beast Wars, that was like mid to late 90s, so that's kind of within that time period, roughly.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it's mid 90s in that time period.
I think it was early. I think Beetlejuice came out early 90s.
Early 90s? Okay. So then... Okay, so that's pre... Yeah, cartoon. That's pre-cartoon, and Nickelodeon was still doing, like, Cat Dog, and...
I don't think they even gotten as far as Cat Dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I watched this show on Nickelodeon.
What year was The Wild Thornberrys?
Well after Rugrats, I know that.
Yeah. Rugrats was mid-90s, right?
Early to mid-90s. I'm pretty sure Beetlejuice predates Rugrats. I mean, you look up Rugrats, I'll look up Beetlejuice. We're on our phones. 89 to 91. So, like, right at the turn of the decade.
What'd you say?
Beetlejuice came out, ran from 89 to 91, so right at the turn of the decade.
Rugrats was 91.
Okay, so, like, that came out just after Beetlejuice had finished, like, right around the time that Beetlejuice was wrapping up. So, yeah.
Nice.
It's got Danny Elfman's opening theme from the movie as its opening theme, so that constantly pops in my head.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure that is a theme that I will never forget. Because it's Danny Elfman. Also, every so often I'll hear like some random character that just is voiced by whoever did the narration for the second Mad Balls episode. Mad Balls Gross Jokes. And it's like, that sticks out in my head. It's like, I love that episode. First episode, not so much, but Gross Jokes, that's top tier. That's top tier horror comedy for kids. Rewatched that earlier this year. That still holds up incredibly well. First episode, no. It's like, no, I'll pass.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, so Beetlejuice. Yeah, pretty good.
Basic premise is teenage goth girl has an undead ghost friend. They go on adventures, usually in the Neither world.
The Neither world?
That's what it's called in the cartoon. Like, I always thought it was the Netherworld because that's what I'm more familiar with, but then I heard a video on YouTube refer to it as the Neither world. Then I watched the cartoon and I was like, oh, they went with Neither world. Okay.
That's weird.
It is weird, but...
That's weird, dog.
It's weird, but...
Whatever.
And
Yeah.
Beetlejuice is an asshole.
Of course he is. When is he not? Honest question. When is he not? He's always an asshole.
I'll get back to you later.
Right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. Have I recommended Sweet Home?
No, but you might have. But do it again, just to be safe.
I'm recommending Sweet Home, 1989 film and game. Yeah, inspired Resident Evil. Camera crew goes to a mansion to
take pictures of paintings.
from a missing Ichiro Mamiya, or who is believed dead, at least.
Like, nobody's seen him in forever. So
Nobody's seen him in, like, what is it, 20 years, I think, in the game and the movie.
I do not recall. I haven't played the game in years. So.
Mm-hmm. And shit ensues, like, almost immediately. In the game, like, in the movie, doesn't happen right away. But in the movie, it's, like, right there.
You
right?
mean the game?
In the game.
In the game, it's, like, right there.
Yeah,
not the movie.
In the game, immediately happens. And you essentially get the plot of the movie, but from the game. And both are slightly different. Both are different experiences.
And it doesn't take you long to figure out why this didn't come out in the U.S.
Yes.
Especially given the time period it was released. It's like, this would have not flown in Nintendo of America's offices. They would have been like, no.
Give it a couple of years and it probably could have been released in the West. Like, because by 91, Uninvited had already come out, and that was already pretty graphic, all things considered. The Chemco games in general were pretty...
the Mac Venture.
Yeah, the Mac
Chemco games.
Mac Venture Chemco games were already pretty... pretty... out there.
Uninvited is the only one of the three main games that I never actually finished. I mean, unless you're counting Deja Vu 2, in which case then I didn't finish that one.
Listen.
But I did finish first Deja Vu.
Uninvited. So here's the thing, alright? Here's the thing. So, Deja Vu is the hardest out of all of them.
Okay.
Only by virtue that it doesn't tell you what you need to keep and what you need to get rid of.
I mean, granted, all three games have items that you can just pick up and never use.
Yes. The issue is that Shadowgate is arguably the easiest because it doesn't handhold you. But if you pay attention to the stuff that you're reading and the stuff you're looking at, you can get through the game just fine. Like, it's hardly a problem as long as you're paying attention to what stuff is going on.
I played it with a game every time, or a guide every time.
I didn't. Yeah, at this point I can beat Shadowgate without a guide. Deja Vu, I still need a guide for because it's just so unintuitive and everything is extremely precise. Like, you cannot make in Deja Vu, you cannot make mistakes. You just can't. Uninvited, it is very unintuitive because it doesn't tell you that you need to pick up certain items. So, for example, in the cathedral.
Well, let's maybe save that for the next podcast.
All right, whatever.
Because we're talking about Sweet Home right now.
We're talking about Sweet Home. The Sweet Home, you get the plot of the movie in the game as well through notes and like conversations had with like ghosts and like people that are dying or whatnot. And
like each character has like a specialization.
They've
got an ability that for much of the game only they can do.
Yes. Each character has a special item, which, gee, I wonder where I've heard that before. That they have at the beginning of the game. They have limited inventory. Where have I heard that before?
Mega Man!
Yeah! There it is.
On a side note, on Twitter I've occasionally seen these like images of like wrestlers reimagined as like Mega Man Robot Masters, and I look at them and I'm like, this looks more like a Kaneko Man character.
Nice. Yeah.
Tangent over.
I was gonna say, yeah, so each character has a special item that they use for certain things. Akiko is arguably the most important character because she has the med kit, which heals status effects, and she's the only character in the game who can do that unless you get a replacement item. So permadeath is a thing in the game, and you can lose. Characters can die surprisingly easy in the game, especially in the early game if you don't grind. The game is an RPG. It almost like requires grinding, especially for the late game, because late game enemies are bastards, and if you aren't at least level 10 for the middle portion of the game, or for like the second portion of the game, you're gonna have a tough time. The enemies are just kind of a pain in the ass. They can be. Status effects are even worse because there's different types of status effects, but some of them share the same name. So each one does like different things. There's like, let me see here. So there's poison, which drains health. And then there's strong poison, which freezes your character and drains health every second. There's curse and strong curse, which drains mana, or prayer points is what they call it. And that's also a pain in the ass. And then there's also fear, which is just your character is frozen. And then there's also like delayed fear. So, yeah. Status effects are a pain in the ass. I remember doing a stream with Sweet Home, and I got to the final portion of the game. And I forgot to save. And every single character got hit with fear. And I couldn't get them to the medic. I couldn't get them to the character with the pills because I had lost Akiko at the time.
Oh.
So everyone got frozen. Game over. Instant game over. Like, you don't even get the courtesy of watching them die. It's just, every character's stricken with a status effect. Game over. Instantly. Sorry, maybe next time.
That kind of reminds me of like the most frustrating enemy I ever encountered in the first Final Fantasy game. Like they looked like mind flayers. They might have been a more advanced version, but they had the ability to turn players players into stone. So if you encounter like a group of them, they could easily just absolutely wreck your team.
Yeah,
it's like,
the whole thing's dumb. Alright, so I suppose we better get back to the movie.
Yeah, I guess.
So Fantasy goes to check on Mac and the watermelon.
Because she hasn't come back yet.
And instead of the watermelon, we get Mac's head.
Mac's severed head.
Mac's severed head, which then bites Fantasy's butt. Literally.
And then vomits water?
I guess. So it's implied... So it's implied that, yeah, Mac was dragged into the well and then beheaded. That's rough, bud.
Of course, when Fantasy goes to tell everybody about that, they just find the watermelon.
Yeah, so they think she's
just imagined it, and Max just got lost somewhere, and they'll find out later.
Which, yeah, you really good job, guys.
I feel I should mention that at about this point, Auntie is feeling a lot less invalid.
Yeah.
Like she gets up from her wheelchair. Just casually.
She also mentioned that she was afraid of sunlight.
But she's taken her sunglasses off.
Yeah.
Like at one point they're eating watermelon and Fantasy's just kind of looking at her and she like slightly opens her mouth and there's an eye that just glances towards Fantasy.
So yeah.
At the same time Auntie does. It's like...
So yeah, unless you're a fucking moron, it becomes obvious that Auntie's the antagonist of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was Auntie in the well with a rope.
I think at one point, Auntie, while Fantasy has her back turned, goes into the refrigerator, and somehow winds up in the rafters above the kitchen area.
Yeah,
I think Fantasy catches a glimpse of her going into the refrigerator, and gets prof. I was like, I swear she went into the fridge. I was like, there's no way she could have gone in the fridge. It's a refrigerator.
Yeah, so Auntie is just fucking with everyone now.
Because she's up in the rafters dancing.
And then the skeleton...
She takes off her shoes and just starts dancing around. The skeleton joins her.
Yeah, the whole thing's weird.
Sweet goes to get the mattresses for the night.
And then she's killed.
She's killed by the mattresses.
Gorgeous is in the bath at the time. And there's like a weird hair thing
that kind of creeps up on her, but... And this is the first scene to actually have nudity in it.
Right.
You know, the standard horror cliche of a nude character. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It is what it is. I think Fantasy at one point goes to find Sweet, who has... She witnesses the attack of the mattresses. And goes to get help because she can't open the door. So when Kung Fu and Prof join her, they just find a bunch of mattresses all over the place. And
oh yeah, speaking of, Kung Fu gets attacked, by the way, by like a bunch of wood and shit. And then she just
Kung Fu fights it away and just brushes it off as though or nothing. She barely comments on it.
Yeah. Must have been the wind or something. Or some stupid fucking excuse. She's dumb.
It's like the most obvious ghost shit, and she's just like, well, that happened.
Oh, I must have been imagining things. Like, yeah, alright. Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, so Sweet's dead.
More or less. Gorgeous goes up to one of the rooms and finds Auntie's makeup setup. And decides to put on some lipstick that, who knows how old that is.
Yep. At which time she's possessed by Auntie.
In a surreal sequence involving the mirror.
Yeah.
And her own face shattering and revealing fire behind her face.
Yep, it's weird.
It's weird. But so is the rest of the movie, so...
Yeah. So then,
So for all intents and purposes, Gorgeous is dead and Auntie is possessing her. That's what I'm assuming has happened in this scene.
there's multiple interpretations for the ending of the movie, and this has the biggest to do with it because it's clear that Auntie's possessing.
Auntie is the main antagonistic force of this piece.
So, long story short, basically, Auntie's killing a bunch of unmarried women to stay young.
That hasn't been revealed yet. We still got to get to the piano scene.
Right, but
the piano scene is the big important one.
Right, but that's essentially what's going on. She's killing people to maintain her youth. Essentially, is what it's like.
Or to regress.
Or to regress the effects of aging, because it's like
Dracula in the book. Dracula in the book.
I was gonna say it's like an Elizabeth Bathory situation. Yeah, whatever.
I mean, that also is Dracula. That's basically the same thing. Just one's ingesting it and the other's bathing in it.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, we get to so then
Melody thinks she gets her finger caught between a couple of the keys while she's playing the movie's leitmotif on the piano. Like, goddamn, is that a catchy tune?
And then she plays it again.
But this time, Fantasy is there while Kung Fu and Prof are looking for anybody else.
So they find. So the important thing here is while Melody's playing the piano and everything, Prof and Kung Fu, they find Gorgeous, who then goes through a different doorway, and then everything is like explained, because then Gorgeous becomes like disembodied and shit.
I'm pretty sure that's after the piano scene, but
maybe it really doesn't matter.
Things get a bit muddled.
Yeah, but then they go inside and they find Sweet in the clock.
Yeah,
and then the piano eats Sweet or
it
Melody.
chomps down on her fingers, and she's like, "What?
What? That's weird."
She puts her hands back down on the keyboard, and then it bites one of her hands off, and it's like, "Oh shit!" It's like, "Oh, now you're noticing."
Yeah.
And then the piano eats her in a scene that needs to be seen to be believed. Like, at one point, her decapitated head floats on screen while her legs are flailing around, and she's like, "Ooh, naughty," because it's like an upskirt shot or something. It's like, and this entire time, Fantasy is just watching this whole thing happen.
And then she passes out.
And is eventually found by Kung Fu and Prof.
Yep, who see the piano is just, like, covered in blood.
Like, I remember the last note of the piano scene is that the key cover slams down and then blood splatters on the wall behind the piano. Yep. It's like,
I'm sorry, I had a little discharge. Yeah, so all that's left is it's Kung Fu, it's Prof, it's Fantasy, and for all intents and purposes, Gorgeous.
And this is when Gorgeous starts basically plot or info dumping.
Yeah.
Basically telling, well, it turns out my auntie actually died years ago, but that wasn't enough to kill her. She died of loneliness and kept living on loneliness and killed young unmarried girls who came up to the mansion in order to sustain her youth indefinitely. Yep. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, pretty much.
With the help of her magical cat. Which, there's a painting of it on the wall that... Well, if you look at the cover for the Criterion Blu-ray, that's what it turns into at one point. Just like the open Maud feral cat look.
Yeah. So, so Gorgeous is like, I'm gonna go get help. And then leaves everyone behind.
You know, that happens before the piano scene, now that I think about it.
Doesn't matter.
This movie is confusing. At one point, Togo is at a ramen stand that has a bear as one of the servers.
Yep.
Like there's just a weird cut. It's a weird transition from what's happening in the mansion to Togo at the ramen shop.
He's also getting accosted by a truck driver. Being like, get your fucking piece of shit tiny vehicle out of the way, guy.
Yeah, but that's like an earlier scene. But yeah. It's like eventually he gets to the watermelon salesman. I was like, well, I don't want watermelon. I prefer bananas. Bananas? And then the watermelon vendor turns into a skeleton and crumbles to the ground.
At which point...
Togo passes out.
At which point, Togo jumps into his vehicle and he cries out, banana, banana. And then...
Passes out.
He passes out. And he's eventually... Listen, he is turned into bananas, alright? We're not spoiling... Like, this is not a spoiler. This happens at the end of the movie.
Very end of the movie, it's just revealed he turns into a pile of bananas.
He turns into a pile of bananas. Don't ask me how, don't ask me why.
Well, that could be said for much of the movie.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how and don't ask me why. But anyway, while Prof is reading Auntie's diary, trying to figure out how to deal with this situation, they figure out that...
Did I mention that now they're locked in because all the doors and shit closed?
Yeah, we get all sorts of poltergeist activity with everything being flung at them from all over the place.
Yep.
At one point, Kung Fu manages to bust out of the...
The phone tries strangling.
Out of the living room?
Yeah.
Yeah, the phone tries killing her, and she kills the phone. At one point, I think she kicks a mummy through a wall.
Oh, yeah, there's a scene where Gorgeous, takes the phone and is gonna pretend to call 911 because Gorgeous is possessed.
But, from our perspective, we hear on the other end, it's just screaming.
It's Mac, it's Sweet, and it's Mac and it's Sweet, I think, that are screaming.
Could just be all the other victims.
That too.
From the county.
Yeah.
It's never explained because all we're doing is hearing it while Gorgeous is acting like she's having a conversation with somebody on the phone.
Yep. So all this shit's happening. Melody's dead. Mac is dead. Sweet's dead. Fucking Kung Fu's next to go.
Yeah, she manages to get back into the main area, and Prof is like, kick the painting of the cat. That's the source of the magic. That'll kill it. So Kung Fu does a flying Kung Fu kick and gets attacked by the overhanging light fixture that eats her head.
Doesn't stop. Yeah, it doesn't stop Kung Fu.
She gets into some weird extra dimension where we see the body parts of all the other girls floating in. Whatever the hell is going on there. And Kung Fu's legs come out of the light fixture and kick the painting of the cat, which then starts spewing blood out of its mouth.
Which causes things to start flooding.
And then at one point, Prof is attacked by a jar with teeth and falls into the flooded blood and dissolves as though she were in a digestive tract.
Yeah.
Leaving just Fantasy alone with the possessed Gorgeous. And they embrace.
So here's the weird thing. So the movie sets up Gorgeous as oh, she's gonna be the final girl. And no, she's the third. She gets possessed and is, for all intents and purposes, I say again, the third person to die in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Third person to die proper. But there's a question about the ending. So it's open to interpretation, in my opinion. So you could look at it one of two ways, right? Obviously, when she's still possessed, when her and Fantasy embrace one another. She's still possessed by Auntie. It's a question of the ending: is she still possessed, or is she now her own person?
There's an interesting story about this climactic scene. So apparently the actress playing Gorgeous was uncomfortable being nude on camera. And so the actress playing Auntie was like, look, I'll get nude. And then the director was like, well, now I got to add that into the now I got to give her a topless scene in this movie. Because why not?
Of course. Yeah. Japan.
So at one point during this climax, Fantasy pulls pulls open Gorgeous's dress, and in the reflection in the blood, we see a reflection of Auntie, who also has her dress open. So yeah, that.
Listen, Japan does things differently. All right, they are not shy about nudity.
Nope. Unless it's below the belt.
Unless it's below the belt, then it's just like nope.
Nope. Can't even see that in porn.
Nope.
You're censoring that.
No. Listen, that's a super private area. All right. Stop it. Stop it. Get some help. Ryoko comes to the house, finally.
New mom. She shows up at the watermelon stand, finds Togo as a pile of bananas, and doesn't think anything about it because, I mean, wasn't there when he turned into bananas.
She never met, she never met Togo in the first place, so for all she knows...
It's just a car parked there that has bananas that are being sold.
Yeah.
At this shop stand that nobody's at. Whatever.
Yep.
So anyway, she makes it to the mansion.
She gets to the house, has a look around and everything, and finds Gorgeous there.
But there's like an extended period where she's knocking on the door and nobody's answering.
Yeah. And so, Blanche is still alive because everybody thought the cat died.
Because you would think that with the painting vomiting blood enough to flood the house. So,
and they shake hands.
She and Gorgeous shake hands.
Yeah.
They sit out by the veranda or whatever that area is called.
Yeah, it's a veranda of sorts.
Okay. And they're just like, the new mom is like, where are the other girls? Oh, they're probably still sleeping, but don't worry, they'll wake up when they get hungry.
Yeah, which also leaves things open to interpretation, I guess. I mean, they're dead. They're obviously dead.
I mean, there's no way that some of them could have recovered from the stuff that happened to them.
Yeah. I don't know.
Also, I forgot to mention, we forgot to mention the scene where Auntie is eating Mac's hand, just kind of casually.
Oh.
Just casually nibbling on it.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. The girls do find Mac's hand.
And they realize it's her hand because it's got a ribbon.
Yeah. So, yeah, the ending of the movie is Ryoko, the new mom, and Gorgeous shake each other's hands, and then Ryoko starts on fire. And that's the end of the movie.
Yep.
That's it.
We get credits. We get end credits.
So it begs the question here, right? So it begs the question. The entire movie sets up that Auntie kills unmarried women. So why did Ryoko die?
Maybe it's the lingering discontent with that Gorgeous had towards her new mother.
Right, but then the question is this Ryoko, or is this Gorgeous, or is it Auntie? So things are open to interpretation. Yep. It could be that both personalities merged together, which, would be an interesting thing. It wasn't this movie. So yeah, that was Hausu, and yeah.
House.
Yeah. This was House. A movie.
It was an experience.
It was a movie.
Definitely watch it at least once.
Never again. Watch it once. Watch it once. If you really like it, watch it again. Otherwise, don't bother. It's one of those movies where it's like, if it's years down the line, and you're just like, what's an old movie that I haven't shown my friends? And you think of House, then it's acceptable to watch it again.
VJ had seen this movie, and when we mentioned we were going to do this movie, he was like, well, I want in on that.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't want to be part of the podcast, but he definitely wanted to watch the movie again. Now, I was actually going to bring this up at the beginning of the podcast, but I completely forgot. The joke about doing this as the third House movie was going to be like a part of a joke about about House 3 only being House 3 in the UK. It was released in the US, but under the title of something that wasn't House.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. But that's because House 3 is just a straight up slasher movie. It's not a horror comedy like the other two movies. It barely has a house to its name as far as I am aware. The Horror Show. It was released in the U.S. as the Horror Show. And so, since I couldn't actually get my hands on a copy of this movie, we weren't going to do it. That was my excuse. Still can't get my hands on it, but that's just an excuse. Turns out there actually is a House 4, which actually is a proper entry in the House series because it's technically a sequel to the first House movie, and even has William Catt reprising his character from House briefly. But like with the Horror Show, I couldn't get my hands on it.
Dang.
But we were already going to be doing this because I thought there were only 2 House movies. Aside from this one. So yeah, that's why we're not doing either the Horror Show or Home Sweet Home. Or whatever the fourth one was called. I don't remember what the fourth movie was called. I'm looking it up.
It really doesn't matter.
Just for the sake of completeness, The Repossession.
Yeah, which is like a sequel, I guess. Something like that.
Also, apparently there's a remake coming out at some point, but that's like been in development hell for years, so who knows?
Mm-hmm. Alrighty.
So yeah, that's why we aren't covering House 3. And instead doing a completely different movie that also is called House.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So I suppose that about covers it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not much else. 5 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Because of course you would. All right.
As an experience. As a movie, I'd rate it much... As like a story, it's pretty basic. I might give it a 5, but with everything that goes on in the movie, that bumps it up to a 10. It's like...
Right.
It's an experience. It's an experience. It's a must-watch movie at least once.
Yeah.
Your mileage may vary. I love this movie.
All right. Well, with that said, it's time to bid adieu, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.